So why would I stress myself out doing a talk on stress? Well, for one, mental health is becoming more and more of an issue, especially in tech. Studies have shown that certain mental conditions can take more of a toll on your life than heavy smoking. As an example, one of my favorite DJ producer vocalists, Aruna, was out of commission for almost a year when the pain caused, basically she had too much anxiety and that caused a lot of pain in her hands and she wasn't able to use a computer, which basically meant she couldn't work. Living in tech today can be stressful. You're always connected. You always feel like you should be doing something productive even when you're at coffee shop or you're on vacation. And it wasn't that long ago when running into one of these on your travels was one of the most stressful things that could happen to you. Not this, which is an actual screenshot, and it freaks me out every time I see it.
That's my actual inbox.
You sent it, thank you. So, how do us kind of techies typically deal with stress? Maybe with a bit of this, or a little this, or maybe a little bit of this. But fortunately, people are starting to talk more and more about healthier ways to deal with stress and mental health. As an example, back in 2014, Microcomp had a session on stress and how to deal with it, and described kind of how alcohol can really disrupt your sleep patterns to the point where very quickly, you're making very poor decisions with diet, exercise, work. PHP Tech had a whole mental health summit, so it was an evening where they actually provided dinner and 4 people shared their stories about what they've been dealing with and the results of that. Work camps, Corey Miller gave a great talk back in July on entrepreneurship and his mental health. Really good on WordPress.tv if you want to check it out. And also some panels on imposter syndrome have been popping up at some work camps. Even in the Vegas airport, the US government is doing a whole program on mental health and exercise and just ways to improve that as you age. So I'm not a therapist at all, but all these things kind of inspired me to share some of my story and hopefully some of the things I've learned and experienced over the years and how they've helped me will hopefully help you a bit. So I started programming when I was about 12 years old, drinking loads of brisk iced tea. I'd be just doing things for fun. It wouldn't really matter if it was money or not. I was 12. At one point, a couple years later, I wanted to learn client-server programming over the internet. So I ended up making a thing called drawbingo.com. You can see there's the white space there because it's 640 pixels wide, because that was what things were back then. And it was also for fun. It was something my mom suggested to do, and it actually grew, though, word of mouth, $1 of advertising, to one of the #1 rated games at the time, 700 simultaneous players or so. And it started bringing in some advertising revenue. This is back when you could actually charge money for advertising, decent money. And then the stress started kicking in. Okay, there's a lot of people playing this. If the server went down, and the server was a Pentium 200 MMX running off my home internet connection, which wasn't dial-up, fortunately, and I get 400 emails. Why is the site down? Holy crap, my bingo, this is horrible. And then I would reboot it, do whatever, and then I get 200 more emails. Why didn't you personally email me and tell me it was back up and running instead of just posting a message on the homepage? I'm like, ah. So yeah, a little stressful. So, I did that for a bit, finished high school, and decided to go to university. Almost didn't go. I really did debate whether it was, a waste of time, but happy I went. Though the usefulness is still for debate. I know people who graduated from my program and don't know how to code at all. And most of the people I know who are great coders learned outside of class. But near the end, I had 4 group projects. I was volunteering a decent amount of hours, 20, 30 hours a week on the business. I think I still had the bingo game at the time. Business, I had a girlfriend at the time, which is like a full-time job right there. And one day, I felt, tension in my chest. And I thought, okay, well, obviously, I'll just go to the gym and exercise because I'm stressed out. And that should fix it. But during the workout and afterwards, it kind of got worse. And I had a group project meeting right after, and I said, you know what, I think I should go. So got one of the friends to drive me to the hospital and did the whole triage thing, and they asked my symptoms and whatnot. And it was a pretty full waiting room, but I didn't have to wait that long. They called me in pretty quick. And at first I thought, yay, I don't have to wait that long. But then I'm like, wait, you think I'm worse than all these other people who are sitting here? Crap. So Ended up going in, they did some tests, did an EKG, and it turns out that an infection hit the lining of my heart, which normally probably wouldn't have gotten that far had my immune system not been compromised by, killing myself through overwork for so long. So, and I still remember one of the nurses telling me, like, you're 23 years old, your body is trying to tell you something, you should probably listen and slow down a bit. So, and as we all know, being overworked is a huge issue in tech. And you look at things like Amazon, where you got quotes like this. It's been in the news a lot lately, where their work balance is a little out of whack, and things like nearly every person I work with, I saw cry at their desk. That should never happen. For something that you're just going, and for people who have families and friends. You got some extreme cases, obviously, like this one, if you didn't see before, where she's been working for 30 hours, obviously doing a lot of work for this agency before, and shortly after this, suffered a massive heart failure and coma and never woke up. Similar story as well for this agency, where I think we were working about 7, 8 a.m. to about 11 p.m. every day for a month, and same thing, massive heart attack, never woke up, young kid. Even elephants are not immune to overwork, and it's just, you can't deal with it. And startup culture and a lot of tech companies in general almost wear this as like a badge of honor. How many hours did you work last week? I don't know, how many hours did you work last week? Even though research, time and time again, is proven that doing crazy hours to crunch or whatever is just not feasible and doesn't work to squeeze more productivity. You got graphs like this, which I love, where at first you think this is amazing, and we get a little boost of productivity. We're doing 60 hours a week instead of the 40, but very quickly it starts to become negative. It becomes 60 hours a week. You get less out of people than you did when they worked 40, very quickly. And the behavior is amazing to observe. Very shortly, people look like they're walking around like zombies, and bugs start pouring in, but you don't want to give up because everyone else is doing it, right? And then you've got the crunch, and you got to realize, okay, you got to recover afterwards. And usually the recover period is way longer than the initial crunch time. So it's not like you can just flip the switch and after a weekend go back to working 40 hours a week. You need to recover. So anyway, obviously overwork has caused health issues for me, but also underwork and relaxing, causes stress of the things you haven't done or could be doing. And it's tough to give that up. But after fortunately recovered from the health issue there, I listened. I decided to slow down, didn't work as much, traveled the world a bit and try not to stress out so much. But obviously working less and traveling more leads to bills, which, I racked up some debt and some more debt, which I've really paid off by now. But, when things start to get maxed out, obviously that's pretty stressful. Just can't win at this no stress thing. There's nothing I can do. So I'm like, all right, I gotta buckle down. I'm gonna, start growing my consultancy a bit. I hired some subcontractors. Things are going pretty well, and until I realized one day when I was waiting for a reply from one of the contractors when I was on vacation that I've been doing the business development side for a while, that I can't just hop into the code and finish some stuff. And the company is called Brian Hawk Consulting, so I'm responsible. More stress. So I decided, okay, you know what? I'm gonna. A lot of people I know as well who had agencies and whatnot, scaled back. I started just doing all the custom development. But I'd been out of it for a bit, so even though I've been programming for so long that I felt like I knew nothing, like I was an imposter, that I didn't know how to code. Slowly started building up some confidence, but still felt really behind. And how many people have never thought any of these things, like I'm not good enough to be here. It's only a matter of time before they figure out I'm a fraud. They made a mistake hiring me. What were they thinking? It's basically roughly defined imposter syndrome as the inability to internalize your success. Inability to ask questions because you think people are going to think you're an idiot. And it's obviously not true at all. And you've got books like Uncle Bob and his Clean Code, where he suggests 20 hours a week of coding outside of work to keep up and feel confident and everything else. But holy crap, 20 hours a week, that's like a whole weekend or more than that at 8 hours. If you do it just during the week and you take weekends off, that's 4 hours a night. But it should be fun, right? It's just stuff that you're doing outside of work that isn't for work. But I've got a wife and cats, and I want to spend time with them, if I can. But obviously, should treat it like improving your skills, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't learn anything or try to keep up a bit. And it's almost like an investment. So it's described in the Pragmatic Programmer, where it's good to learn a new language every year, good to diversify, So if you're doing something like Ruby on Rails, obviously there's a good chance you could go into a job board and find something that would work with that. But for something like Elm, that's an elm tree apparently. I don't know. But it's it's a lesser known language, and it can be riskier in terms of marketability. But obviously you can take what you learned from that, take some of the concepts, apply it to other languages, and if a company decided to build an entire CMS system that runs their company on Elm, you're the person who can go in and figure it out, and you can charge higher rates because you're one of the few who can do that. I heard this on a podcast recently where being busy is the worst form of laziness, and it's true. It's basically not taking the time to figure out what you're doing if it matches your goals and your dreams. And and doing things that other people say that you should be doing can be worse than not doing anything at all. And I'm still trying to figure this out and questioning, and I can never be sure as to what is the road to take. But I feel like you can do things kind of in seasons. Nathan Berry wrote about this recently, where you can try it, see if you like it, and if not, stop. So I wish I had all figured out, and I could tell you exactly what to do. So there's sunshine and roses and everything else, but I can't tell you some things that I've done that's helped me through all these things, and hopefully gets you thinking about what could help you too. So one thing is definitely learning to say no, not maybe, not yes, no. I'm still getting better at this. I realized when this talk was coming up that I said yes to way too many things in September and October, but I'm getting there, I'm learning. Scheduling time for friends and family and actually putting it in the schedule. It's super easy for things to come up and fill it up otherwise. Setting priorities, it really helps kind of frame every single decision. Michael Hyatt had a good article link there on an exercise you can go through to try and figure that out for yourself. For me, it ended up being, I come first, which sounds selfish, but if I don't take care of myself, I can't do anything for anyone. Then my wife, then friends, then work. So when work starts to creep up in terms of the time it's taking in life, I can just kind of step back and remember what the priorities are. It's still important, but it's not the top. Imposter syndrome. Found this amazing article David Walsh wrote recently on imposter syndrome and how it's easy to just see the end results of someone's work on GitHub and not the work that it took to get there. All their previous experience and maybe some commits that they kind of deleted or didn't actually commit. And realizing that people who consider themselves experts and don't go through any waves of self-doubt at all are idiots and are so arrogant to not know what they don't know. So you're not alone in feeling like you're falling behind a bit, and we just need to keep going. So keeping a journal has been huge. I don't do it all the time, but I use like the Day One app, so it reminds me every once in a while. But I just find that kind of clearing my head and getting it out of my head really helps. Otherwise, I just kind of keep going in circles, and it's too much to track. Sort of like having a large software program that you've got in your head with no documentation. It's hard to sort everything out and focus on what you really need to. Obviously, limiting alcohol, unlike this guy, or cutting it out completely. Taking a couple days, it takes a couple days to get out of the system, but definitely get a lot better sleep, and in conjunction with exercise. Unfortunately, I've got a trainer once a week and do 4 to 5 times a week, and when I don't do it, I definitely really feel it. I couldn't for a couple months. I had an open wound on my elbow, so that was unfortunate, but so I had to use stuff like this, deep breathing, which is literally, so it's literally 3 seconds in, and 6 seconds out. Which seems really odd, right? Every time I do this, my wife is just like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yes." Just trying to relax. But I saw this suggestion on an Ignite talk in Cambridge, a guy who had to deal with a lot of really bad stuff in his life. And he just kind of explained, shallow breaths really make you anxious. It's like a fight or flight adrenaline response. And this article goes into some of the theory behind it and why it's super helpful. Walks in nature. There's obviously a lot of research behind it, but for me it really puts things in perspective. You can go for a walk and you see, okay, these trees, river, sky, everything's been here for way before I was here, and will be here for way after, hopefully, way after I'm gone. And so those things that are taking up a lot of headspace and stressing me out at the time, don't need to. They're really inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. Try not to be afraid of making changes that aren't comfortable. I've got the Whole C Manifesto, which I need to put in a better spot. It's kind of around the corner, but just try not to be afraid to make changes in your life. There's change is kind of that one constant, and if life is short, if there's something you don't like, you should definitely try and change it. having savings, and not, I like to call it FU money, which is basically, you're not living, we're trying not to live right on the edge, but way below it, and it basically just gives options, so we're never feeling stuck. This is a big thing. This came out of, I can't remember if it was a podcast or if it was the Mental Health Summit at PHP Tech, but basically that, I never even thought of having a third party to talk to, but basically the fact that you do not need a diagnosable medical condition to have a third party to talk to and work through some things with, and just as a checkup. So fortunately, I was the first person I called was a good fit for the odd visits that I go. But there's an article there that can help, how to find one. You can ask other people, or just call around and do a session and see if it works. But it's definitely very helpful. Music has been huge. I'm a huge electronic music fan. This is Vel Festival, which we only got about 40% of it done, but due to rain and storms and stuff. But just cranking the music up, going for a little drive is a huge way to get rid of some stress. That graph again. So educating employers and clients on facts like this one. That I've quit positions where this has happened for too long, and at the time I feel like I'm a quitter or a failure. But at the end, after a while of recovering, I see that life is short, and if they're not going to respect our lives, it's just not a company that I can work with. And just realizing it's okay to ask for help and not to be afraid to talk to friends, family, loved ones, and if I ever need anything. So hopefully this has helped and you've got something out of this. But whatever you do to help with your stress, try not to always resort to pizza and beer to mask things. Even if amazing events like this, give it away for free. Thanks. It was funny too, after I was, calming down and looking at Facebook, this ad came up. So apparently I needed it, and I'm vegetarian, this doesn't work.
So I've got a question.
Sure.
This was an awesome talk, so kudos.
Oh, thanks.
This is really unconventional and mainstream tech though. Like you said, everyone's the, how many hours can you do? How many beers can you drink? And it really sucks.
Yep.
So I was wondering, you can give you this talk elsewhere?
No, it's the first time. I mean, I thought as I made it, and the fact that I haven't seen many of these, like I said, there have been ones in PHP Tech and MicroConf and whatnot, but shorter versions and not as many actionable tips is really their story and what worked for them, but not as broad.
I just want to say, it's so awesome that you're bringing this stuff right to the open. So thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Yeah.
When I was younger, I did the whole badge of honor thing, working for the employer, 80-hour weeks and the champion as the hero, and it took a big toll. So wondering how the education of your employer might work so people might be getting into that situation.
It's tough because like I said, I've left positions where they don't listen, right? And I didn't really know. It's not like I went in backed by research. I'm just like, I can't do this anymore, kind of thing, right? So, but yeah, hopefully, there's obviously a lot of research out there on how working too many hours isn't, reduces productivity. So I would hope that if, maybe management doesn't realize, how much of a productivity hit it's causing, I would hope that, if they would listen, and if they won't, then they're probably not listening to other things that I'm saying, so then it's probably not a good fit, right? So, and then if you have the option to find something else, then do that. But yeah, they would have to be open to it, otherwise, yeah, you can't really change them. Any other questions? Cool, yeah, I'll be around for a bit. I've got a bus, but yeah, thank you so much for having me.